Hello and welcome to another Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, your conscious living show. I'm recording this in Austria, but this is going out all around the world and also on the community radio near Portsmouth. Now, as a lot of you know, I'm really interested in Qigong and meditation and Tai Chi and Reiki and color and all the sort of the energy modalities, the energy healing modalities, like I know a lot of you are as well. And today I've got a real treat for us actually, because fortuitously, out of the blue, as a lot of these wonderful things occur and happen for us, I was messaged by a chap that's on the other end of the line here, Mr. Keith Sharp, with regard to an alliance between Qigong and Tai Chi. And was I interested in that? I'm like, am I interested in that or what? I mean, I'm really interested in this. So this is this lovely man. I'm going to refer to him as an elder. I hope you don't mind that, Keith, but I feel that you are truly an elder from Southampton. He's always lived in Southampton, but has travelled extensively around the world and has worked in mainstream pretty much, but also he's been teaching Tai Chi and Qigong to many, many, many people, particularly the over 50s in the Southampton area. So I'd love to introduce him to you here on Chi Time. Welcome in, Keith.
Hi, Clara. How are you?
I'm really good today. Now, you're over in Southampton at the moment, yeah?
I am indeed, yes, sitting in my study at home.
And how long have you been practicing Tai Chi and Qigong for?
I first started with a couple of lessons in 1995 when I was an expat in Saudi Arabia.
Ah, so it was when you were abroad that you picked up on Tai Chi and Qigong, because of course we know that they are an ancient sort of Chinese practice, exercise form for healing that has been brought over to the West probably in the 1960s and 70s. So you were over in Saudi Arabia. How did that happen? What was that like for you?
If I track back a little bit, I did travel to Hong Kong in the mid-80s, and I walked along and passed a number of people in Kowloon Park. And as an ex-physical exercise person, I looked at these people and thought, what are they doing? And it wasn't until 10 years later that I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who was part of the organization in Saudi that I was working for, an American called Rick Atticks, who was a martial artist from California. And Rick kindly introduced me to 2 or 3 lessons of Tai Chi before he moved on to something else. And on the second class, I was hooked.
What was it? What was it that got you, Keith? What was it that got you hooked?
That's an interesting question, but I think it was just the fact that there were people out there who were prepared to guide you along an exercise routine which was not demanding on muscles and those aerobic and physical classes that I used to do when I was a sportsman. And the attitude of Rick was very, very nice. And I thought, I could rather like this. And one of the first things he said to me, and we were starting to do the repulse monkey, and he said, what's wrong with your left ankle? And I said, well, I had a major football incident with it, and I had pieces removed from my left ankle when I was in my 30s. And I thought, well, if somebody can notice that, that's marvelous.
That is, isn't it?
Okay. So that's where we started. I was working in Saudi Arabia for 2.5 years for a major Arabian company.
Shall we say? Yes.
Yes.
And so were you outdoors? Was it in a class or was it outside?
In a class indoors, working outside in Saudi Arabia with the temperatures and also Westerners doing things which the Saudis don't approve of.
Ooh, yeah, sure.
Not good.
So what do you think about people over in China that practice this every morning, you know?
Well, I'm fascinated, and I have been to China with the British Health Qigong Association, with Faili Yip and Tari, mainly with Tari on that occasion, and we actually joined in, and we were asked to demonstrate our own capabilities to about 40 practicing Tai Chi and Qigong people in the main park in Beijing. Okay. So that was an interesting challenge. And I was introduced to Jing then. That was back in 2008.
2008. So you've been practicing for how many years now? So I'm really rubbish with numbers, do apologise, people, but how?
I came back to the UK in 1997.
Right.
And had not done any more Tai Chi because Rick had moved on.
Yeah.
I immediately joined a class, martial arts class here called Wu-Tan.
Yeah, as I call them, the Wu-Tan clan. No offence.
Right, that's all right. But then I was working away again, away from Southampton, and in 1998 I suffered a heart attack.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I was rushed into hospital, and luckily I didn't need an operation, but I'm still on the medication.
But your practice, your Tai Chi and Qigong practice, has helped keep you as fit and healthy as you are, because, you know, you're in your 70s now, if you don't mind me telling listeners. I know he only looks about 54, but, you know, that's, you're doing really well.
There's no problem. The thing being is that when I joined Wu-Tan, it was a martial arts school. And after a few weeks, the guy running it, a Chinese guy with lots of information, asked me why I was not interested in martial arts. And I said at my age, I was not interested in martial arts. I was interested in health and well-being and my own health. But I spent 8 years with him. Good.
Which was at the, you know, the base of it. And for those listeners and viewers, the connection between Tai Chi and Qigong, I've just been banding these two words together because it's an alliance that also between these energy forms, and the Chi to me is the key, but it's something that you, Keith Sharp, here on Chi Time with me this evening, are really passionate about, bringing the Tai Chi and Qigong together in an alliance. So what is it that is, what is the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong for people? How could you explain that for us?
I'm not sure I see a difference. I see an understanding. And whilst the words of Tai Chi are familiar, Qigong is not. And we need to develop that. And I think I fell into it because I was running adult education programs where I was actually teaching Tai Chi with a warm-up, which obviously was Qigong, but not recognized as such.
Yes.
So we were doing deep breathing, we were doing various exercises, but it was just a routine to get warmed up before we did the class of Yang style. And I think over the last few years, it's become recognizable that Qigong is not known at all. So there is a major promotion and marketing activity to be carried out.
Tell me about it. I mean, I've been practicing for over 20 years now, and I trained with the College of Elemental Qigong up in London. And we felt, you know, it's still going, really creating teachers and practitioners all over Europe. And indeed, it became a global school with one of the directors who now lives in Canada. He was teaching over in Australia and New Zealand. So a very similar sort of ethos of trying to get people to understand what this natural movement form is. And first of all, one of the things that strikes me is the difference in spelling, because my college spells Qigong, Chiqung.
Yes.
There's a standard sort of spelling now, which is Qigong, which honestly does not help us Westerners to pronounce it correctly. And so I looked into this, you know, why have we got different spellings of it? And it's literally the translation from it's either a pinyin translation, which is the Qigong, or it's the Wade Giles translation, which is the Qigong. So you know what, Keith? I tend to just write them both together now so that people know that at least they are the same things, which helps to sort of stop the confusion. As you say, people don't even know about Qigong and they sort of stumble on the spelling to begin with. That's not really going to help them get into that natural energy practice that it gives and wants to share with you, and I feel underpins everything. And I will go off on one a bit because it's a real passion of mine too. And I think that both of us, yeah, absolutely. That's why we've been drawn together to talk about this, to maybe help to shine some light on this really important practice.
I think Qigong, whichever way it's spelled, needs to be recognized. And what I've tended to favour is the pinyin spelling, because of, I think, the Americanism of our language now. And I have an alliance or an association with Dr. Roger Yanka in California, and it's always Qigong. And with Bill Douglas of the World Tai Chi and Qigong Day,
yes,
it's similar. And I think what you've said is putting the two names together. I now tend to say Tai Chi is the Wade Giles with the brackets of Taiji.
Thank you for mentioning that, yes.
Qigong with the pinyin style with Wade Giles in brackets. So I think you're right in as much as it, and I've just done a little Billy Do, and if people don't understand what a Billy Do is, it's an old term of a note.
A little note, yeah.
Clinical commissioning group, because I'm trying to get them to understand what Qigong is, and it's a real challenge. So I think we need to couple both together and realise that we have Tai Chi, we have Qigong, and they're four terms as opposed to two.
I love this because, Keith, you just said, let's bring them all together. And that's what this is all about. Qigong and Tai Chi are not separate. They're united by the Qi. We're all united by the Qi running through us too. So let's unite the language as well. Yes!
Do you also acknowledge, accept, or recognise, I'm sure you do, that when people ask me what Qigong is related to Tai Chi, and I will say, you cannot do Tai Chi without doing Qigong. Now, whether it was in the days of Wu-Tan where nothing was explained, nothing at all.
Yes, I know.
And I think the only time that and I won't call him a master because his teaching was not teaching, it was watching. And he only corrected in 8 years, he only corrected one hand movement. And in those sessions, I learnt the 42-step sword. I also learned other systems, such as, well, not learnt them, but I did them, such as Bagua and Singi. And so there is a whole multitude. And what do they all rest on is a solid foundation of Qigong.
I completely agree. You can't really run a Tai Chi program without knowing what your Dantian is. Frankly. So similar thing that I had when I was running the Qigong and Tai Chi classes in the leisure centres as well, that I would obviously be doing a lot of Qigong to begin with and build the Tai Chi from that. And I think that's what a real solid Tai Chi practitioner will understand. It's not just a warm-up, it's a warm in a way. It's a way of getting your juices flowing before you send them into a beautiful sequence. But I was just going to say we need to come to our first track. And so lovely Keith Sharp is here with me on Chi Time this evening, and we're talking about Tai Chi and Qigong. And he'd chosen a track. I said, what's your favourite track from like way back? Go on, tell us what you chose.
Which is this one, the one way back to when I was an apprentice?
Yeah, the one way back when you was an apprentice.
Okay, right. The one I chose was from a film called Blackboard Jungle in around about 1957. And the tune that was there was Bill Haley and the Comets playing Rock Around the Clock. Now, whilst this was not a very musical tune, it really opened up teenagers' minds, because after the Second World War, we had swing, we had the previous 1930s music, and then we had traditional jazz and also modern jazz. But the transformation through the rock and roll that Bill Haley brought in also meant that as an apprentice, I was introduced to the Teddy Boy era.
Oh, I can see you. You've got that look about you. Yeah, I reckon.
So as an apprentice, as a 16-year-old, there were 40 apprentices in a workshop which was not heated during the winter. So it was pretty realistic days, and it was pretty rough. And two of my colleagues, one ended up in prison and the other one was on probation, and I was just on the edge of not doing it. So it's pretty good. But it was a very interesting time. And we had swing music, we had modern jazz, And when people think about the old days in the 1970s, I think that I predate them by about 20 years.
The 1950s. Well, I was really inspired by your story here, and I was wanting to link it to some Tai Chi and Qigong. And so I hope they've been quite clever here, folks, that one of the things that we do to warm up is we shake. We shake our wrists, we shake our whole bodies, we shake our tushes, we shake whatever, because this really helps to get rid of tension and it brings you into that sort of natural alignment. Would you concur, Mr. Sharp?
I do indeed, yes. Yeah. Although I don't personally use shaking, because when you have people maybe in their 70s, 80s and even 90s now that I'm with, is that they seem to think this is rather strange. And as customers, I have to comply with their choice of indications. So,
I agree. And you're right. I mean, one is only encouraged to shake your wrists as far as that feels comfortable. And if you've got arthritis and things like that, you might actually prefer to massage them.
Well,
or something
I endeavour to have them in one of the exercises to rotate the wrist with the
yes,
the lace.
super.
Because obviously, with arthritis, people may have their claw hands.
Yeah.
And to massage and flick the fingers is very difficult. So I endeavour to rotate the wrists.
Nice.
Whilst I say to them, this may stop you getting carpal tunnel, very few of them are using keyboards to the extent that I will have a problem. And also with opening and closing the fingers.
They're nice, yeah.
As into the church, if you like. And also keeping a shape of a ball in the hand with the hands open.
Oh, lovely.
Imagining that this is a sphere of chi and sparkling inside the hand, linking up with the Lao Gong points and the various energy points in the fingers.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's come back and do some more energy work. I really want to show you here, those of you that are watching. Those of you that are listening, do feel free to shake out to a bit of Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, and we will be back with Keith Sharp and me, Claire Apollo, on Chi Time after this. Hello, welcome into Chi Time again. We've just heard Johnny Kidd and the Pirates playing Shaking All Over, and I'm here this evening with Tai Chi and Qigong aficionado Keith Sharp, who I've just asked to stand back a little bit so you can see his t-shirt. Woohoo! And also, I want you to be able to see some of the movements that he's suggesting to you. Let's just pick up on his t-shirt here. This yin-yang symbol is absolutely classic, isn't it, for denoting the dance between the light and the dark, the in and the out, the up and down, and brings us to that place of balance in ourselves where true healing can take place. And I noticed that you've got your name, Keith Sharp, so we know who you are. I should get one of those, Claire Apollo. But Tai Chi...
It's only because some of my friends say I can't remember my name.
Oh, bless them. I thought we put on a label, it helps. And then you've also, we were just talking about the spelling of Tai Chi and Qigong with the Wei Giles pinyin, and you're just going to say you're Wei Giles up on there, aren't you?
I am Wei Giles up on there because it was a time several years ago where I had a number of t-shirts printed for myself and some colleagues. And particularly, I was running a session. In fact, I started a program off for people with Parkinson's disease, and they all wanted a t-shirt. And this is going back maybe 6 or 7, maybe 8 years now. And so you say, are you wearing an 8-year-old t-shirt? And the answer would be yes, because I have about 30 different t-shirts.
Of course you do, yes. That's it. Once you get a whole load of them together. But no, great. Let's get back to... Keith is really passionate about sharing Tai Chi and Qigong with our aging population, which is what you're referring to, this demographic of a lot of us over the age of 50 now, and some of us getting over the age of 70, but wanting to stay fit and healthy and being a little bit, put off by aerobic exercise, or maybe it's uncomfortable and you can't manage it, or too much walking or whatever. So coming into this subtle energy exercise form that is actually probably one of the most powerful ones in the world. And I'd love it if we can share with listeners and viewers here on Chi Time some of the key exercises. And so just before we went to that shaking track, we brought up some very key points about how some people don't like to shake their limbs, and maybe they'd like to just rock their hands from side to side. And we were doing this lovely rocking movement and rotation and things like that. So Do you find that when you're teaching people over a certain age, everybody's got an anomaly or another with their bodies?
I think the difference in the teaching that I've come across is that when I was in the adult education field, I was running what I would call a progressive class, where I would actually be teaching additional moves every week over a 20-week period. What is developed, and I'd like to think it's something I've instituted here, is to recognize that as we get older, we may have not just one deficiency, such as arthritis or COPD, but we can have balance problems. We have Meniere's disease, and I've had heart disease people, cancer recovery people, and I endeavour to run these over 50 classes that I started back in 2004 on the basis that anybody can join any time. So it's not something which is progressive. And I have a lady that's just started with me. She's 93 years old. She's hard of hearing. She has sight problems. She walks in a walking stick, and she sits there for 45 minutes doing whatever she can with her arms because she cannot use her legs very much. Mm-hmm. Her daughter comes down from Reading, which is what, an hour and a quarter's drive away, to pick her up to come to the class.
Oh, bless her.
That is dedication. And this is what I'm trying to get over to the authorities, that it requires people to put their own health and wellness to the forefront, as opposed to relying on our wonderful NHS. So instead of the shaking, if I may, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do the exercise which I think is adequate for people who are immobile or they can stand, and that's just raising up the hands very softly, bending the elbows down and rolling the hands as though you're going around a globe, and just gently breathing in as you lift up and breathing out as you press down gently. And these can be done for minutes on end if you wish. And these are the first ones that I actually use for encouraging it, right? I use this to open up the channels, but I use 3 more before that, which is really just allowing us to stretch. Mm-hmm. So we're going to the heaven and earth.
All right.
Okay, and just pressing and pulling so that your rib cage and the internal organs are being stretched.
So this is part of the Badwan Jin. This is one of the Badwan, or the 8 pieces of brocade.
It's also, we can find them in many, many areas, including Shibashi. And yes. So we have these lovely soft movements just to start off. And of course, the one thing that Qigong encourages us to do is improve our breathing practice.
Definitely.
And that gives us our relaxation.
It does.
We have difficulty recognizing the deep or diaphragmatic breathing processes that we encourage, because when we were at school, we were and using the upper part of the lungs as opposed to using the diaphragm to expand and allow the young lungs to work.
Yes.
So I have this challenge to have people who have been with me maybe for 10 years who want to do more Tai Chi, but I also have people coming in who've only been with me 2 or 3 weeks, and they find that Qigong, and the majority of people now are enjoying Qigong more than they are their Tai Chi.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you were just showing us that very first movement there. That is the beginning of all Tai Chi forms, am I correct?
It's pretty much, I mean, if we watch Shibashi, which I think is now something I never used to take interest in, but the first book I bought was in 1995, and it's a Shibashi book. I'm only just beginning now to really use it more. And of course, then you have opening the chest.
Of course, you do it that way. Can I just keep you into this connection between Tai Chi and Qigong? So for me, we would call this drawing the silk from the cocoon. This is the movement that you were just demonstrating about coming in and up and around the ball with the movement of the breath, and you just roll that over and over again to wake the whole Chi system up. And that people that have done Tai Chi will recognize it. And I have a little joke with them sometimes, and I say, but you don't get to do it many, many times. You get to do it once at the beginning of your section. But if you have done it many, many times, when you come into doing it that once in your Tai Chi form, all the information is in there for you to enjoy. Every little nuance of that movement, you know, because you've run that so many times over and over again. So it becomes a meditation. And I think that's why Qigong can underpin Tai Chi so beautifully, by giving it the energetic understanding and the components that Tai Chi then can dance with. You know, I often suggest that Tai Chi is like a dance. I know it's a martial art, really, that's hidden within dance moves because it needed to be kept safe from the powers that be. But I love the connection between the two. And I think another one of the movements I would love to introduce, I'm getting excited here because this is actually the first time that Keith and I have actually taught.
I'm glad my wife would be very pleased with me getting another woman excited.
It's the chi that made me do it. But another one, so this is what I'm saying, one of them, there are certain movements that really connect Tai Chi and Qigong, and help us with this deep breathing that you were talking about, and this being able to manage it so that you're not feeling that you should be doing something else. Very much it encourages you to find your own way with the movements, and so your confidence builds. You know, as you have probably seen as well, people that have had struggle with balance. I mean, balance is one of the big issues of the over 50s. I think, I'm sure that you've come across it too. And if anyone's had a fall, once you've had a fall, that fear is there. But these practices can really help to build your confidence again. Yeah.
I think we could go on for many hours.
Yeah, we could.
And maybe we'll have the chance one day. But instead of going specifically to a falls prevention program, which I'm trying to deal with on balance and muscle tone, is that I find that when I'm using this, as you call it, silk reeling, right, is that the first or second movement within the Tai Chi sequence is actually lifting the hands up. And I know, say, when you're starting in a sequence like this, please accept that your Qigong warm-up sessions are now being accommodated, infiltrated into your Tai Chi, so that when you get into Grasper's tail, it's nice and soft instead of being. And we're trying to get away from the term martial arts, of course. We know that whilst, and I explain to people, have you heard of Taekwondo and karate? Oh, yes. Well, did you know that Tai Chi is one of the most dangerous martial arts in the world? Because
I haven't
karate.
heard that before, really.
Sorry?
I hadn't heard that Tai Chi was one of the most dangerous. Go on then, tell us.
The thing being is that with karate, you have a set of rules,
Mm-hmm.
you have padding, and you're not allowed to do these certain kicks. And the equivalent with that is Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And then went to Muay Thai with the Thais in their kickboxing. They're all regulated.
Sure.
Whilst we have sequences and we have 5 family styles of Tai Chi, there are no rules. So when a person such as Professor Cheng Man Ching would actually be against an American Marine, for example, the American Marine would probably work to Queensberry rules and the type of hard combat situations, whereas Professor Cheng Man Ching would actually use all his skills and he would use his internal energy to overcome. So whilst I'm not a martial artist and I'm not a medical practitioner, I do know that if push came to shove, my reactions may well break somebody's arm.
Yeah.
So grasping bird's tail in the 4 or 5 sequences, which is nice and soft, will have an application of martial arts.
Yes.
Let's move away from there, because what we want to do is to get people to relax and be able to flow and be able to get that balance between transferring weight from one leg to another, improving the muscle tone, and avoiding and preventing the hospitalization that occurs when they fall.
Yes.
Now, whilst we are trying to get evidence base, is that people who have fallen that have been in my class end up with severe bruising, but not necessarily requiring a hip or knee replacement. And so it's the prevention
This is, can I just say, not falling actually in your class, but when they go back home. Yeah. Oh, just going to clear that up.
A 90-year-old who's no longer with us, sadly, lovely lady, and she was in one of the shopping precincts, and she fell and caught her head on one of the display foundations, and she came back all bruised, and she said to me, if I had not been relaxed, I would have broken something.
Sure.
And one of the Parkinson's ladies, we were walking out the car park, she tripped up, fell over, and I just said to her, just stay where you are, don't get up quite quickly. And she said, if it hadn't been for what we've been doing with you, Keith, I would have broken something.
Wow. Yeah, you're so right. When you're in fear, you go into contraction, you're holding. Whereas with the flow, you can be with it and, maybe roll a bit as well. And one of the other things that I'd like to sort of bring up here, because we're sort of moving in towards your next track, is that both you and I like to use music when we practice Qigong. I know personally I also like to include some of it in my classes, but it's quite nice to have silence as well. And when I asked Keith what his favourite tracks were, he immediately said, Carlos.
Yes.
And what's his name? Carlos
Nakai. Nakai.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind that? Is that we have many, many meditation CDs around and Tai Chi for supporting us. Where did I get this from? My wife and I like traveling, and we were touring around the canyon districts in Western USA, and we'd stopped overnight in a little tiny town called Bluff, which is in southeastern Utah. And I asked the owner of the hotel where we could have breakfast. He said, go to the other end of the town, which is sort of a mile. He said, and there's a restaurant, which we happen to own. And this restaurant was in the middle of nowhere, really, at the end of the town, typical one street American city. And whilst my wife and I were having breakfast, I asked the proprietor, can you tell me what that piece of music is that's playing now, because it's perfect for what I want? And it was Inner Voices by Carlos Nakai, who is what we would call, I think, what I'm forgetting the term now, but Carlos is a Native American, Native Navajo, and he makes his own flutes. And this music is basically flutes. So that when I ask people to give me an indication where they think the music comes from, they immediately think of Peru, China, everywhere else, but they do not think of India, of the United States. And my sequence of the short yang form by Professor Cheng Man-Ching takes me 7 minutes. And I found that the very slow introduction, there's a trigger point on Inner Voices and an ending point that I can actually time my demonstrations to. And I use it very frequently.
Very good. So we're going to play a snippet of it now for you here over in Chi Time now, and then we'll come back with Keith Sharp after this and talk about his alliance for Tai Chi and Qigong.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, so you're back on your Chi Time with me, Clara Apollo, and tonight we're talking about the link between Tai Chi and Qigong with Elder, referring to him as Mr. Keith Sharp is with me here, talking about the history of how he got into doing Tai Chi out in Saudi Arabia many, many moons ago, but also how he is wanting to bring these important healing exercise forms into the mainstream, particularly into the NHS, by creating an alliance for Tai Chi and Qigong. And this links really nicely to what we were saying before that last beautiful track by Carlos Nakai, the Inner Voices, about how there is no standardization, that Tai Chi could be quite dangerous because there's not the protocols in place like there are for taekwondos and kickboxing. So is this why you're wanting to sort of form the alliance, to make it safe for everyone or just more accessible for everybody?
What triggered me on this is always very difficult to ascertain, because it's not like writing down a program and saying to achieve this particular end you must actually have these developed. And as I transferred really from teaching Tai Chi to sharing Tai Chi and Qigong.
Yes.
There's a major difference.
Yes.
Whereas many of our Tai Chi instructors throughout the UK are very straight in what they want to do, and their thinking is a bit parallel, and it's always about teaching Tai Chi in many areas. So with the development of organizations like Untitled Qigong and a few others, I think is that we need to develop it as becoming the principal complementary therapy for health purposes, not just within the UK, but throughout the world.
Yes.
And my alliance with Dr. Reza Janka and also with Bill Douglas, the World Tai Chi and Qigong man in the States. And of course, I go back to my original teacher, Rick Atticks, who now lives and operates a Tai Chi retreat in Thailand,
Wow.
to which I've been,
Yeah.
is that I've realized that what is it the customer wants? Coming from a marketing and support worldwide treatment, it's not a question of what your boss tells you you must do, it's what the customer really requires and understanding it. And I have a sincere belief that the majority of older people require something that is soft, gentle, and helping their health and wellness, as opposed to saying, if you don't put your foot in this position, you are doing it wrong.
You are so right, Keith. It's been giving people permission, isn't it, to do it their own way.
Nobody does anything wrong in my class apart from me.
Yeah. Messed up again.
Next week. So what possessed me to think in this, being 76 as I am now, my wife is saying, why do you want to do this? This is a hobby. I don't make much money out of it. And all these things that I'm doing are really saying somebody has to have some initiative, like ourselves, promoting it. And I got involved in setting up with one of my colleagues Tai Chi for Health and Wellbeing, which is part of our alliance with Malcolm Calvert. Malcolm and I go back many years, and he now is running with a couple of his colleagues and his partner classes, 45-minute sessions, which I started off in 2004 with Social Services and Primary Care Trust. And there are over 50 classes now running in the Southampton and surrounding area.
Well done.
Okay. So these, if you like, that little initiative has encouraged me to say, well, why just Southampton? Why not just have something else around the area? And it wasn't until I ran World Tai Chi and Qigong Day last year in Southampton, with all the risk assessments, the borrowing of equipment, the funding of various things, and having, because I didn't know you at that time, otherwise you would have been asked to come along, I managed to get Malcolm, Jane, Patrick, Bruce, Mark, and another lady who couldn't come on the day, and they all contributed to a couple of hours worth of work within the Southampton Parks area.
Great.
And we had the mayor opening it, and I thought, there's something more to this.
Yes.
There really is something more. So as a result of that World Tai Chi Day, I felt that I could offer something because I don't have to make a living out of it. People like Jane, Patrick, and the rest of them, they're either fully employed on a job, such as Mark is, or they're actually having to promote their own business. And the last thing I wanted was to do anything that affected their income other than promote it. Then I came across this lady's name in New Forest. And I thought, who's she? And I thought, oh, so that's why I sent off this little tiny thing and said, would you be interested? And you came back very positively.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind me interrupting you there, Keith, it's something that had been running along the lines of my training as well. Jed Sumner, who set up the College of Elemental Qigong in London with Albert Allen, was very much wanting to also create at least a UK alliance, for want of a better word, something that was going to recognize Qigong in the way that the British Wheel of Yoga has done for yoga.
Yes.
And so when you came to me and said, I want to do an alliance with Tai Chi and Qigong, because for me, I mean, I know that I'm not going to mention any names now, but there are certain factions of Tai Chi in places that tend to say that they're the only ones and that people can only practice within their schools. And really what we're teaching is that Qigong is yours, Tai Chi is yours. It's helping you to find yours, and that you will find yours by training with the instructors, for want of a better word. Now we've already said we share what it is we do, which I love, because it's a resonance. There's an integrity of the energy there, that people will come to you for the sort of Tai Chi and Qigong that you are able to ignite in them, just as the other people will go to maybe a more martial camp, because that's what really floats their Qi boat within themselves. So I feel that we are, through this alliance that you're offering, is that we're marrying them all. We're putting them all there on offer, finding some way of, hate the word standardizing, but to get in the NHS, we've got to find something that we can agree on, that we can have as a standard protocol, I assume, so that it can be accepted by a government body, you know, trying to get this into the NHS. You know, I'm an ex-nurse. I would love it if we could get Tai Chi and Qigong into the NHS by the back door, true healthcare. But I'm ranting again, but I'm just going to bring one other point up, was that why is it that everybody in China practices Tai Chi and Qigong every day? You know the answer to this?
If I knew the answer to it, I think I'd be selling it.
Oh, well, it is. You're on it, actually. Actually, you're on it.
I think we have to look back at the fact that if we really understand that Qi, being our life force, was it's not created because it's always been there, but the Chinese will look at Qi and the life force as long ago as 3,000 years ago. So they have had generations, centuries of learning what the body does internally, so that when it becomes Qi Kung, and my translation of that is energy cultivation, and they have the acupuncture, the acupressure, and they experimented. They didn't have all the tools available. They experimented with sharpened birds' wings and things we used to use as nibs. And so as we've evolved, and we have to acknowledge that the Chinese, as it's known at the moment, were developing the martial arts from their Qi knowledge back in the 6th century, when we had the Buddhist monk Bodhidharma go to China and set up the Shaolin monks, which is really to the extreme. And your point about there are traditionalists who we must recognize as being the ultimate if you want to learn martial arts. So if people come to my class and they say, I'd like to learn more, then I point them in a direction where they can go to a martial arts class, because it is a learning curve. So we have ended up with falling into the trap of saying, we must teach this way. And I was actually, at one period, I was employed by P&O Cruises to go on 2-week cruises, of which I was teaching Tai Chi. Was I? No. And I did 8 cruises with them, and there were other Tai Chi instructors, and the feedback was, Keith, you don't do this like the rest of them. You're not formal. You're much more informal than people. And P&O, and this is a light-hearted effort, if you like, to recognise where people don't understand it, is that P&O staff required me to fill in risk assessments and take registers, but to get questionnaires filled out. And this 74-year-old lady in a wheelchair came up, and I said, you have to fill this in. I will ask you the questions, my wife will take down the answers, but can I ask you if you're pregnant? And the ludicrous interpretation was from people who had no indication of what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I then went on a cruise, on another cruise ship with my wife on a holiday, and there was a young Belgian guy running the gymnasium, but he had to take a short course in Tai Chi because the gym-based activities wanted to increase something in their portfolio.
Oh, don't get me started on this. I tell you what, look, Keith, we're running out of time here on Chi Time this evening, and I really want people to know more about your alliance of Tai Chi and Qigong, and about how you're also going to appear in this magazine called the Holistic Therapy Magazine. When's that coming out?
Well, it should be out about now because it's a quarterly magazine, and it's going to be for October, November, and December. And it's about 1,000 words on that. Yep.
Super. And if people want to find out more about this amazing alliance that you're setting up with us all, how can they find out more about that?
Well, I think the first point is to actually recognise that we don't have a central gathering point at the moment, and I'm not offering my services on that. But I think the best thing we can do is to say, well, in the first instance, they can get in touch with me by email. All right.
Okay, so that's Keith Sharp.
No, we're going to go with Tai Chi Keith Wellness.
Tai Chi Keith Wellness
at gmail.com.
That's gmail.com.
So,
okay. And also, I know that Ruth and I are going to create a Facebook page that we're going to call probably Alliance of Tai Chi and Qigong. So when that happens, we can put that on any of the playbacks here for links for people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there...
I think if I may, just as a closing one, to answer your initial question, trying not to be the politician of avoiding questions. If like my aim or my vision is to have Tai Chi and particularly Qigong realized as the principal complementary therapy, and then all its activities around it, such as chiropractors, physiotherapists, and everybody else, is linked into the internal energies that we like to think are most beneficial.
Super, absolutely. And that it is, Chi is the key that unites them all. So it makes absolute sense to me to bring this more into the mainstream so that people can experience it for themselves. And if they want to come and do some training with you, Keith, over in the Southampton area, how can they find out about that?
Just get in touch on that email address.
On that email, okay.
Because what I would probably do is then direct them to Tai Chi for Health and Wellbeing, so that they have the instructors that they can actually run around, because Great. I'm not looking to run more than the 4 classes a week that I'm running at the moment.
Okay.
They can join my classes or they can join other classes. Okay.
That's super. Hey, thank you so much for being part of Chi Time, for sharing your wealth of Chi-ful wisdom with us here.
Well, as a former engineer, I'm not sure I class it as wisdom. It's just gaining a little bit of information in a very big world. Okay, and I really thank you for the opportunity to widen the participation and knowledge. Okay?
Definitely.
Thanks very much, Clara.
Thank you. And thank you also for listening to this episode of Chi Time, all about Tai Chi and Qigong. You can find out about what I get up to on clarapollo.com, where you can also find replays to any Chi Times that have occurred in the past. And of course, I will be keeping you up to date with Chi-ful information, because that's what I like. So until the next time, thank you so much for listening. Keep your Chi up, my friends, and head on down to sharing your Chi with whoever wants to practice play, and maybe to this beautiful tune that is indeed by another one by Carlos Nagai, as we play out beautifully and serenely and Chi-fully. Thank you.